Yes, that will open. Okay, we're called to order. Supervisor Augustine asked to be excused. He is in the fields, and I will presume probably Supervisor Kroll as well. All else are present and accounted for, obviously not Supervisor Paskey. But just to make the committee aware, I have asked Supervisor Teskey, who is the Vice Chair on Human Services. I have asked her and she has agreed to step in as Chair of Human Services and then fill the slot on here as well. I've also appointed Finance Committee, I've appointed Paul Zeitler. And then the Human Services will be filled when I put another supervisor, when I'm prepared to make an appointment. Anyway, all that under roll call. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Supervisor Baker, Supervisor Lazansky, second. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Approval of the May 6th minutes. All right, Supervisor Poppy, second by Supervisor Lukes. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. May 21st minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Supervisor Baker, second by Supervisor Poppy. All in, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Then we move to number 6, proposal from Bug Tussle on broadband phase 3. Take it away.
Hello again. I put some information in front of you. It's similar, but there is more information than what I had given the Finance Committee on Friday. So just to give a quick overview, the first 3 pages are just the memo, basically outlining who we are, what we've done in the past, and what we're planning to do in the future. As most of you are aware, Kewaunee County has done 2 projects already with Bug Tussle. One was back in 2020 to construct 7 towers. The county had provided a loan to Bug Tussle for $960,000. Bug Tussle has since that time constructed a total of 9 towers. In 2021, Kewaunee County also provided a loan to Bug Tussle in the amount of $1.4 million to do 61.7 miles of middle mile fiber. There was a delay in that. We had a problem with our subcontractor at that time. They have since been terminated and replaced. For those of you that have been paying attention, you've probably been seeing a lot of Michael's trucks and crews throughout the county. I do have within the packet a work in progress report that tells you that we have had Michael's folks in since basically March 10th. And so this gives basically a week by week the various things that Michael's has been doing to kind of catch up for the delay that we had from our previous subcontractor. Now what we are looking at for 2025 is to do what was going to be phase 3 when we first were going to do our PSC grant, which was awarded to us, but we had some discrepancies in the application, so we returned that money. And since you have in your packet, which is after the first 3 pages, a map of what the project would be. Now, me being stupid, I gave you a black and white copy, of which then you don't have purple lines and blue lines. So instead, I highlighted what are going to be the proposed additional fiber routes within Kewaunee County. Probably the one that you'll notice that stands out the most, if you remember from the previous phase 3 application that we were looking at, is that Dykesville was not being considered at that time, but we believe that that is something that we can do. And so by the phase 3 will not only help to provide service to the village of Dykesville, but also will be able to connect to our remaining existing towers, as well as create additional loops within Kewaunee County. So that way, as we start to do last mile, that We do not have to worry about any one specific fiber being cut and therefore causing a loss of service in to Kewaunee County residents. Within that fourth page, you'll see how we get to basically the cost being projected at $6 million. What we are requesting of the county is to issue what would be considered conduit bonding. And that is, at least from our standpoint, that would be essentially the county co-signing the issuance of $6 million. The county would not be taking any debt obligation on this. That would be taken by Bug Tussle. So therefore, that $6 million does not go against your general obligation debt. Bug Tussle is not asking for the county to make any of the bond principal or interest payments. Bug Tussle would be doing that. So in that respect, that is where we would be asking for the partnership from Kewaunee County. So then the question comes down to basically the risks and returns. The risk would come from any potential default of Bug Tussle and its parent company, which is Hilbert Communications. So to give the worst case scenario, which has not happened in the 20 years that we have been in existence, or over the decade that we've done these types of loans or conduit bond issuance, is that if Bug Tussle were to go under, then any debt obligations would go to its parent company, which is Hilbert Communications. So any of its assets would be required to then make good on the debt issuance. If at that time both Bug Tussle and Hilbert Communications was unable to make its payments, then the county would be required to do so. Again, the likelihood is very small, but I would never say to you that there is not a chance. It's just very unlikely. And in that same respect, if that were to happen, you would become the owners of any assets that have been put in the ground or up in the air attached to that project. Any fiber, any conduit, any type of materials that were part of that project. Now, with that, because of the partnership that we would be asking you to enter into, we would be giving you a financial incentive, which is 40 basis points or 4.4% of any outstanding balance. So that would be at its very highest, which would be 0.4% of $6 million is, what's that? 200, no, it's not 240 million. Yeah, it's no, not 240,000. But so what we would be seeing is that you would be getting that 0.4% every single year of outstanding balance. So we're estimating that you would probably be seeing roughly about $20,000 a year in payments to the county over the course of 30 years. So you get roughly about $600,000. In addition, you would get 26 strands of fiber for your own personal use. I'm sorry, 24, not 26. As well as if there was need for space on our towers, we could be looking at that as well. To therefore let you know that this is not the first time that we have done this. After the maps, you see a thing that talks about conduit bond financing summary. It talks about how we have done this for 3 consecutive years so far. In 2021, we had conduit bonding issuance of $70,000, which included Fond du Lac, Calumet, Jackson, Marathon, and Waushara counties. In 22, we had basically $93 million that was issued, which included Green Lake, Iowa, Jefferson, Oconto, Rock, Taylor, Wood, and of course Fond du Lac. And then finally, in last year, we had $58 million, which was Fond du Lac, Oneida, Allegheny counties. I know that there was some questions at the finance committee as to what is the difference between different types of conduit bonding. We do know that there is a conduit bonding request that will be coming before the board sometime this year for Elda Farms. That is through what is called an industrial revenue bond process. And for that, the conduit issuance would be the county, and you would just be signing a resolution, but you would not have to be co-signing anything. And part of the reason why is because that's a tax exempt bond action. And while we could do a similar type of thing with Bug Tussle, we can't. And the reason why we can't is because to do that from a telecommunication standpoint for us, the federal government has to have put together what the rules and regulations are that stipulate how that would move forward. They have not done that. And so therefore, we definitely don't want to go into that gray area. So instead, we are asking the county to co-sign on to that, and therefore it would be a taxable bond issue. But with the participation of the co-signing of Kewaunee County, that allows Bug Tussle to be able to have those bonds at a lower percentage rate, which is what helps to make this whole process pencil out. If you are concerned about who else has done this, I had already talked to you before as to the roughly dozen counties that have done it in the past over the last 3 years. But I also put in the packet a list of roughly a dozen counties that are currently in discussions about doing that for 2025. We know that Fond du Lac County will be moving forward, as will Iowa, Forest, Price. We believe that Lafayette, Jefferson, Kewaunee, hopefully Marathon will share. So if we put those all together, that is probably going to be a bond issuance of over $100 million. And so if supervisors are worried that you're all alone in this type of endeavor, you're not. In fact, we have a number of counties that this is not their first time doing it. Fond du Lac, Iowa, Marathon, Jefferson are perfect examples that this isn't the first time they've done this. They've seen how it helps to provide the project to be done in their county, as well as that what they believe is a very low risk in doing such a bond issuance. Last but not least, again, I had said that the work in progress is there, so that way if people are wondering what work has been done, what work has not been done, that should be able to answer some questions there. I'm available for other questions or concerns that you may have, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Questions?
Is Brown County just doing it on their own?
Correct. Brown County, what they've done is we took over the Brown County Area Network, or BCAN. In fact, it's the Brown County Community Area Network. And what they did is Brown County is providing a loan to Kewaunee County. I forget over how many years. I believe it's 15 years, $27.2 million at 0% interest. And the reason is that they expect over that time that there will be a set number of towers built and a set number of miles constructed within that period of time. Now they didn't just give us $27.2 million and just said, be wise with it. It's not like me giving the keys to my daughter, the keys to the car to my daughter. It's more of a, okay, we'll hold the money. You provide us receipts that have shown us the work that you've done, and we will reimburse. So that's what Brown County did.
There's a new tower on N, the other side of the line, into Brown County.
Yeah.
Does that have fiber running to it?
That's what we eventually want to do, is get as many of those towers to have fiber to them as well.
Some can bleed over to Kewaunee County.
Correct. Which allows, again, for a stronger network and better capacity for not only the towers, but for people that then who may have, let's just say that they have facilities, not only in Kewaunee County, but in Shawano County. Well, that allows that data and that information to go from Kewaunee County over to Shawano County.
Question. So if Kewaunee County went in, would all three of these bonds be combined into one bond?
No.
Or would we be separate?
Correct. So the three that I showed you have already been issued. So we're already paying on those bonds, as well as making the payments to those participating counties. In fact, I'll go back a little bit. I apologize, Supervisor Loops. What had happened is, to give a history, is that Steve Schneider, the founder and president, had been talking with Al Beekle, who at the time was the Fond du Lac County executive. And Al had approached Steve saying that he wanted to find a way to give better internet access to Fond du Lac County. And so they had talked about that they would do this type of issuing of bonds of where Fond du Lac County had the capacity to issue in the amount of millions of, in fact, this time that will be coming will be for 250 million. And that participating counties could have pieces of that total amount or tranches, which is the fancy word. So in 2012, Adams County and Fond du Lac County did such a bond issuance. And then in 21, 22, and 23, Fond du Lac County was the main issuer, and those participating counties took their piece of the pie, of which Bug Tussle makes those payments, as well as makes the payments to the counties as stipulated in the agreement. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Other questions?
Excuse me, that 0.04,
Point four,
how does, where does that come from? How is that derived or?
how is that derived? We just believe that, because you're believing in us, that it shouldn't be, if we're asking you to take a risk, even though it's small, you should derive some type of return from that. So if we had, $6 million of outstanding, bond issuance, then to the participating county, they would get 0.4% or $24,000 for that first year. And then if it's as it pays down, the payments get less, but
Is that a standard?
that's what we've been doing with all of our counties except for Fond du Lac County. Fond du Lac County gets a 0.1% being the main issuer. And so they'll get a 0.1% on the full tranche. And then if they do any portion themselves, they get an additional 0.4%.
Other questions?
I know there's concerns, so I'd love to try to answer them as best as I can.
Well, I mean, the concerns that I've heard from supervisors, fair or unfair, is the whole thing with the subcontractor. And
Yeah,
I know that's soured some. I don't
absolutely.
think any were more impacted by it than I was, but I don't know what you can do to completely prevent that kind of thing. And I have to say that I've been very pleased with the efforts that Bug Tussle has made in getting all of that, making all of that right.
We know that we disappointed and did not live up to our original promise. Again, perfect example is I still know of emails and the like of people that were unhappy with work that has been done and that needs to be fixed up. And we continue to try to address those issues. In that same respect, I know that there is a couple different concerns. One is the length of the bond issuance, which is 30 years, which is longer than what is typical. Usually it's 20, 25 at the most. This is a little bit more. And I'll touch base on that in just a moment. And then the second part is that the issuance of this bond does not, there is still risk to the county. And I won't disagree with that either. What we have been seeing though is, again, I think we have a history to show that we keep good from a financial standpoint. But both that as well as the 30 years, the important point or the the real essential point of the whole thing is that for us to be able to make this pencil out financially, we've had to be able to make this longer and have needed the partnership of counties so that way we can go get a lower percentage rate. Otherwise, what you're seeing is there are a number of counties that do not have projects going on in their county because they do not want to look at this. In fact, I was just in Marathon County a couple weeks ago. And what we have seen in Marathon County is they're looking at doing another bond issuance for us. And at the start, they were unhappy as well because we had that same contractor that was in Kewaunee County, was in Marathon County. Well, we had to change that around. And again, so replaced and terminated and replaced. But what we did is at the start, they were worried about that. But just last week, they received information from Frontier, which was one of the providers that they were going to get service from, that they returned their PSC grant because they were not going to be able to meet the promise that was made in the grant. In fact, they weren't even going to be close. And then Charter, a week later, then informs Marathon County that the federal money that they had gotten from the Rural Development Opportunity Fund, or RDOF, that they were returning some of that money. Why? Or they didn't have to even return money because they didn't get it right away. But they were not going to service certain sections within Marathon County. And what you're seeing is that throughout the state is that internet service providers are realizing that the cost of doing these projects is not cheap, and it's complex, and it's not a simple equation. And what we've tried to do and have always tried to do with Bug Tussle and through the different county partnerships we've had is we try as much as possible to get that internet accessibility to those rural areas. But to do that is extremely difficult from a financial standpoint because you don't have the density of homes like you do in an urban area. And therefore, providing that service becomes much more costly. And so therefore, for us to be able to provide that service, we need to have lower interest rates and we need to have longer terms to be able to continue to make those payments. So that way we can get that service to those towns.
Is that how you determine your routes? Because there's more residents in them areas?
We do a couple different things, Supervisor Luce. Is one, we want to try as much as possible. Also, there's a variety of factors. One, we try to connect to our existing towers, which helps to provide better service to those customers that are using our towers. Second, yes, we try to think of a middle mile that may pass more homes along that route. There also may be what are called points of interest or anchor institutions, depending on the counties and the towns and the school districts and the like. So we try to look at those things as well. Or there may be county-owned towers or various types of things that would benefit from being part of that middle mile fiber network. So we look at a lot of those things, but some of them that you mentioned are on the table as well.
Because people have been complaining, like from the Piercetown area, there's
Yeah.
nothing up there.
Correct.
And there's nothing in this plan either.
Correct. And here's the part, and I think I talked about this a while ago. I don't know if it was on Friday. Probably the most difficult part of BEAD is managing expectations. And the reason why I say that is this, is when we first look at what Bug Tussle has been doing, and you see the big pieces of orange tubing coming through the ground or sticking out of the ground, a person sees that and they think, great, I'm going to be getting internet to my house within a matter of a month, of which is not likely the case, because if they're not close to that orange tube, like within 500 feet, they're probably not going to be served. But in that same respect, that orange tube was never meant to be service to the home. It was meant to be the middle mile backbone, which then allows us to build off of that to then get to the home. So what BEAD has done, which is fine, is BEAD is what I like to tell counties is BEAD is last mile. It's to the home. But if you don't have the middle mile, if you don't have the backbone, you can't get to the home. And so and again, I'm both saying this as the salesman, but also if I was on the county administrator side of it, is that doing the backbone now sets us up that we won't be delayed for when BEAD money does come in. Because you will already have that middle mile set up, and now you can do that last mile. Does that benefit Bug Tussle? Absolutely it does. Could you do such a similar project with another provider? Absolutely you could. What would more than likely happen is if BEAD money were to come in and it's a provider that does not have a middle mile yet, BEAD will pay for the last mile, but that middle mile comes out of the wallet of that provider because BEAD is not supposed to pay for that middle mile.
Other questions?
Before we move on, Mr. Chair, I just share with the committee that a lot of the details that Scott's been providing are relatively new to us. I met with Finance Director Paul as well as Corp Counsel Bethel this afternoon to keep advancing on, our understanding and analysis of what's been provided. So I just wanted to advise the committee that there will be a little bit more time needed for us to fully understand and ask some more questions of Bug Tussle to be able to give the board good information in the near future.
What we would, if I may, Mr. Chairman, what we would like to see from a timing standpoint is because we issued the bonds in September, that the first or initial resolution would either have to pass in June or July, and then the final pass, and that only needs a simple majority, which is just basically expressing general interest, and then the final resolution would have to be passed in August. And that would require 3/4.
I would anticipate if the administrator and corp counsel are okay with it yet, with what we had discussed was it would be discussed at this June meeting, no vote, point of discussion. Hopefully somebody from Bug Tussle is able to be there. That would obviously be helpful. And then at the July meeting, it would be on the agenda as possible action, if that still is going to be okay with.
I have no issue with that timeframe. I think that while we're working, we'll be able to get you some good information.
It would be good if Mr. Loining could, offer intelligent appraisal of the benefits of this along the way as well. Since I don't know how well the supervisors will, fully understand the benefits for the county. So any help, any insight that you would have, if you could make it that June or July meeting would obviously be extremely beneficial to the supervisors, since some of them may not be as knowledgeable on these matters.
I will be there.
And if I need to reattend either a finance or this committee, I'm more than willing to do so. Or if there's others that you would like to have in attendance, we can do that as well. I know there was one, I'm sorry. I know there was one question that Paul had put in as to, well, what is the interest rate for if the county were not to sign on versus if they were to sign on. We just know that from our standpoint, and we haven't gotten, because market rates always go up on a day-to-day basis. We just know that if the county does not co-sign, that creates a much higher interest rate, which therefore from penciling out the project from a financial standpoint would not work unless you are now going to extend the term even past 30 years, which as a county administrator, I would never recommend, because I just wouldn't.
Supervisor Rondon?
This is gonna be back on our agenda at finance in July. One of the things that we'll be looking for is there's an opinion here from Linda Tremplin, who's the bond counsel for the project, people doing the project. We have not we don't have any information from our own bond counsel that's.
Right.
So that's important and.
Yeah.
In reading this email and from Linda here. I'm kind of confused about her opinion on this tax exempt status and see, there's a kind of a statement in there where bonds can be issued and the payments will be secured. The debt will be secured from revenue from the projects. And it seems like in here, it says that the county would assume no liability.
If you're looking at the Wisconsin RNG one, that is correct.
So
Because
this is not the same type of
no,
project?
ours would be, if you look at the two sections, the Wisconsin RNG, or let's call it the ELDA project. That would be a tax exempt project, and therefore, there's no obligation or risk or exposure to the county because of the rules as how they've been, done by the feds. As for the broadband project, because there haven't been rules that deal with, telecommunications, they have not been put together yet as from a public good standpoint, then we are doing it as a taxable bond project. And therefore, to get a lower percentage rate, that partnership or that support or cosign from the county says to the investors that they're willing to therefore buy those bonds at a lower rate of return.
And Paul Kunish is, he was gonna be getting in contact with our bond.
Yeah. Typically, Corals and Brady is who's been doing a lot of this.
So, yeah, so we've got a lot of people that are gonna be checking into various
Yeah.
things. for us.
And we're confident that Coral and Brady's will corroborate kind of what we're telling you, but you're smart, of course, to do that.
And I think after the July finance meeting, the finance committee will have a recommendation going forward to the board.
Excellent. And what is the date on that July 4th meeting?
The fifth, I believe. Or the county board?
Yeah, full ball.
July 16th. Finance is July 5th.
Okay. Got it. Excellent. Any other questions? Any other, yeah, Supervisor Sawyer?
I don't mean to be disrespectful if it's been answered or not, or if it's the right place to ask it, but since the first installer, not Michael's, and problems with them, have the Michael's or someone else gone back to do lawns or some
Yes.
things that were not
Yes,
properly
yes,
seeded or leveled off?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
As well as because we're continuing, it's both, we're trying to correct past sins,
Thank you.
but we're also having
Thank
to
you.
clear the lawns that we're doing because we're extending.
Thank you.
It's been some time since my phone has rang with this.
Okay,
For a
thank you.
while there, it was
With you on.
Daily.
Daily.
It was daily.
angry people.
There's
Thank you.
one down, I can't remember the road, but it's down by the county park and it might be County Lane. My brother-in-law lives on that road. There's been a hole dug there for well over a year.
And Gary, if you'd be willing to either, well, do you
That
know, just
property-
on County Lane or?
Well, it's the first resident on the, I'm not sure if that's the correct road, if that's the name of the
If
road.
you, if you find out, can you tell Jeremy? Jeremy will forward it to me.
Yeah, that property has just been sold,
Okay,
so he's wondering about the hole in the lawn.
it's for the new swimming pool.
That's, yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
This
Yeah,
might be-
Supervisor Yoki?
Might be a dumb question, but signing on to something like this, does this change future power, loan for like,
Jail?
jail or something like that? Does it raise? your-
That's one of the things we want to get confirmation from bond counsel on. But what we've heard, tonight from both counsel is it wouldn't affect the county's borrowing capacity. Because we're the cosigner and not the borrower. But we want to make sure that that's absolutely true before we go. So it's a good question.
And remember, there are no dumb questions, just dumb people who ask questions.
I thought you were gonna say dumb responses, but
Well, it could be
for
too.
me.
All right, if we have
Thank you
no
all.
other discussion, thank you for
And
coming.
if there are additional questions, please feel free to forward them to Jeremy, and I know he'll forward them to me, and I'll get back to you.
Well, I would anticipate as, Jeremy and Mr. Getlow and others, look through all this, there'll be questions to Tom.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, that moves us on to the county administrator's report.
All right, I just have a couple of things for you that haven't already been touched on. So from the personnel report, you see that we were able to add, one full-time permanent person as well as two, part-time summer help roles. And, I had one person in the law enforcement, sheriff's department transition from being a jailer radio operator to patrol. We did have one resignation in, economic support in the human services area. So that is, before you this evening also, to request the ability to refill that position. Exit interview was done, person did not have a negative experience with us here. They did just, have an opportunity to go back to something they've done earlier in the year. Make that choice.
Their motion to fill that position,
Meeting.
Supervisor Robin, second by Supervisor Poppy. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
And I am sure, available and able to answer any questions you may have, but otherwise, most of the things that I've been working on, a lot of it's been discussed already tonight and in other committees.
Have we, Commissioner?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so Martin will be here later this month, give or take 2 to 3 weeks from now. So things are going well. He's just kind of coordinating his move. And, we did have the highway shop last week where, he recommended, some engineering work get started in the meantime. And that'll be before you at, county board. Coming up here this month. Excited to have him on board. He's already doing some volunteer work while he's getting ready to come aboard.
Well, he's really wanting to get things going, so it's encouraging. All right, any other questions for the administrator? All right, our next meeting date then would be here, July 1st, right? That would be at 6 o'clock again, if that works for everybody. You'll be absent. All right. We'll carry on as best we can. We should hopefully have, we'll have Supervisor Heskey here by then, so we'll have no trouble with quorum. Which we didn't tonight either. All right, motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Supervisor Rogers, second by Supervisor Yonke. We're adjourned.